Hey, brothers and sisters, this is Brother J, Christian apologist. I wanted to make this quick video to point out the double-mindedness that me and the brother Chris K. Dove was talking about from our recent dialogue with the brother Chris Connor and the brother Tremaine.
But I'll let the brothers speak on whether, when they, their point and what they mean.
All right. For me, I actually agree with you when it comes to total depravity. I do believe the scriptures. It talks about man's heart is wicked and he's depraved. He was born in sin through Adam. I agree with that. What I disagree with is total inability.
Now, just to mention, brothers and sisters, that total inability is total depravity. They're not two different things. They're two different phrases or words or titles describing the same exact thing. So to say you agree with total depravity is to agree with total inability. But to say you agree with total depravity but disagree with total inability, you actually are disagreeing with total depravity. So that's the first sign of double-mindedness.
If this wasn't dealing with atonement or the gospel or soteriology, I probably wouldn't give it half the time I give it. But because of that is why I give it the time that I give it. So anyway, so I listened to the recap of the debate, and one of the things that they accused me of, the first thing they said, I was double-minded, which doesn't even, when you look up double-minded, it has nothing to do with what they said I did. I opened up the video with my stance. I said, I do believe that man is depraved.
I want you to notice that he changed what his stance was. That is not what he said. And so we're going to flip back and forth to show you guys what his statement was. When you take out words, it changed the entire context. So you guys listen for yourself. He changed to man is just depraved. But he first said he agreed in total depravity. All right, listen.
I wouldn't say totally depraved. For me, I actually agree with you when it comes to total depravity. I believe I wouldn't say totally depraved. I actually agree with you when it comes to total depravity. I believe because I believe that everybody has a level of some good somewhere in them.
To actually believe that man has some good in him somewhere is actually a doctrine of Pelagianism and semi-Pelagianism. I'll leave a link to those two heretical teachings as well, so you guys can look into what Pelagianists believe. But the scriptures clearly say, as you saw on the screen, that in our flesh, in our carnal nature, dwelleth no good thing. But he says in man's nature, in man, in himself, in his flesh, he has some good in him that goes directly against the word of the holy apostles.
But I do believe the man is depraved. Depraved means morally corrupt and wicked. Do I believe that? Absolutely 100%.
If you are morally corrupt and wicked, how can you then have good in you?
What I don't believe is that man does not have the ability to respond positively to the gospel message. That's what I disagree with. And they said that to be totally depraved and to have the inability to respond is the same thing. And I didn't know what I was talking about, and I was double-minded. Well, I'm sorry. Even though they may think it's the same thing, it's not. To be totally depraved is not the same thing as being unable to respond. Inability means the state of being unable to do something.
The problem is that he doesn't understand what total depravity actually is. We do not preach that man cannot respond to the gospel. Neither do we teach that man has not a will. We agree that man has a will, and we do agree that man can respond to the gospel. And the problem is that you will not choose God because of your nature. God has to change your inner man for you to have ears to hear, to believe the gospel, because it's spiritual, and the carnal man counts it as foolish. So we do not teach that man doesn't have a will. Indeed, we teach man has a will, but it is limited to his nature. And his nature is to be hostile to God, to hate God, to love wickedness, to love darkness rather than light. And man does respond to the gospel. But if it's left up to man in his dead state, with his corrupt being, his corrupt morality, his corrupt wickedness, he will always reject delight. That's what we teach. That you respond, but if it's left up to you in your nature, your sinful nature, you will always reject God because you're a hater of God. These guys always conflate the standpoint that we stand on. We have never taught that man never has a will. Neither do we teach that man don't make a choice or can make a choice. What we teach is that you within yourself would not choose God. It takes God to work within your spirit man and to raise your spirit man to life and give you ears to hear, that when you hear the gospel, you will believe. That's what we teach. This is a very important subject. It may seem minute to some and just seem like an argument on play on words, but it's a very important thing and a huge thing, and it is at the very base and foundation of the gospel itself. Man must understand his nature, must understand the condition that he is in, and realize that it is not him. There's nothing that he can do. There's nothing that he has done to be saved. But it was all a work of God, including his very faith, which is a gift of God, as the scripture says. One has man as the center of salvation. The other has God as the center of salvation. One view relies upon man's own free will outside of any divine force influence, which is what free will is. The other put all dependency upon God, even our very faith. One gives all the glory unto God as to why we are saved, as to why we believed. Because as the Apostle Paul said, we were once all in ignorance and unbelief, but mercy and grace was poured upon us along with the faith and love that is in Jesus Christ. This all came from God. Man has it not within himself, of himself, apart from God, to choose God. You only choose God because he chose you.